comment from Mr. Kudazi Mumbawi, I hope I'm pronouncing it okay, founder of Manism, and Shuan Musaka, founder of African Crypto Research. And obviously they will be doing Q&A as well with the participants. In the program, there will also be an announcement on further country coverages and additions by Mr. David back again. And finally, we'll do closing remarks and vote of thanks by Mr. Olyanka Odinaran, Advisory Board of African Blockchain Institute. I hope and I'm sure you'll get to enjoy the program. And Kayode, now I'll pass it to you for the welcoming message.
All right, thank you, Kome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. We thank you for joining us for this the second edition, the report launch of the Africa Blockchain Report. So today I'll be running us through basically what we do at blockchain at ABI, the Africa Blockchain Institute. Basically what we do is about building blockchain capacity for digital transformation in Africa. And to be able to get this done, we have three priorities that guide our operations. Starting with the training, we have training programs that span across entrepreneurs, policymakers, and also professionals as well to come on board on blockchain technology across Africa. As well as deployment, we have seen many multinationals and businesses and also government or agencies that want to deploy blockchain technology for their businesses or just that want to come on board on the blockchain technology space as well. So we are this part of our priority to assist them to come on board on the blockchain technology space in Africa and even beyond as well. And the third priority we have at ABI, which is what we are celebrating today, is the research. Beyond even the report that we are putting forth out to the public today, we also have in-house internal research that we do for businesses and also market research as well for businesses that want to come to the continent. But much more bigger player we have at ABI, it's our Africa Blockchain Report. Here we look into African countries and use cases, startups, and also stakeholder ecosystems on what they are doing with blockchain and coming out with evidence-based results on how that will guide policymaker and also guide into business operations on the continent in terms of blockchain technology. And also, outside of these three parties that I mentioned, which is the training program, the deployment, and the research, we also have three other side programs that allow us to attend to other wider audience aside from the three priorities that we have, starting with the Africa Blockchain Incubation Program. That has been a very important program to all at ABI, where we groom startups that not have any touch with blockchain technology to start with, now bringing them on board on blockchain technology space. So last year we started with Made in Rwanda in collaboration with MakerDAO Foundation. This year also we work with Near Protocol, Near Foundation for the African Blockchain Incubation Program. And we have incubated close to 8 blockchain startups or eight startups that come on board on blockchain technology system. And also now we are looking forward to incubate much more by next year as well. Aside this incubation program, we have the Blockchain Summer Bootcamp for teenagers. Last year we worked with teenagers in Ghana. This time around we work with teenagers in Ethiopia. What we are doing is to work with them intensively for 5 days on what blockchain technology is and how they can even run personal projects across board on blockchain technology. This year was supported by Solar Foundation, and we look forward to work towards the next year summer bootcamp as well. And the last one is the Africa Blockchain Hackathon Program, which is going to be also for this year in October, starting from October 17 to November. This time around, we are collaborating with University of Namibia with focus on climate action and green hydrogen. This time around, we spread the hackathon program across every nook and crannies across Africa and also across all professional line as well. Especially those that have interest in environment, energy, sustainable energy, and also those that are interested in green hydrogen as well. So I will encourage every one of us to please look into the hackathon program coming up by next month. So these are the other side program. Moving on to the real cause of this meeting today, the launch of the Africa Blockchain Report. As I mentioned earlier, we have previously done last year, starting with last year, work on 4 countries, which is Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Tunisia. We look deep dive on what these countries, individuals in this country are doing with blockchain technology. And those results is what we compiled to make up of the Africa Blockchain Report for last year. being the first edition. This time around, we are moving forward to the second edition. Many thanks to our partner, Agro-Rwanda Foundation, for supporting us so far on this research. This time around, we are looking at Ethiopia, Ghana, Zimbabwe, and also Tunisia for this year's Africa Blockchain Report. And I'm sure once you have access to this report, you'll be able to understand what is going on in this country in terms of blockchain technology, including cryptocurrency as well as other use cases of blockchain, also in Africa, specifically in this part of the countries that we are looking into. So at this point, I'd like to thank you again for joining us to the Africa Blockchain Report, especially this second edition that we are launching in collaboration with Agro-Rwanda Foundation, and I wish us all a very fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much. Comment. Kume, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I muted myself. Thanks so much, Coyote. I actually forgot to mention also to thank the Agro-Rwanda Foundation for supporting this initiative and driving this. Now we pass it to the next speaker, to Mr. David, to basically walk us through the research findings and a bit about the report as well. David, back to you.
Thank you, Kume. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, good morning, for wherever you're joining from. It's a greatest pleasure to have you here to be part of the launch of the second edition of this report. It looked like it was just yesterday when we launched the first edition. And to think we started this journey of the Africa Blockchain Report during the pandemic, and the resilience, the support we've gotten from our stakeholders, the startup ecosystem, and all the enthusiasts of the technology has been really amazing. And it's just such a great joy and a great milestone for us to be here today. I'll run us through the summary of the insights we've been able to gather from the 4 countries that we studied. And if you are with your phone, if you want to, just use the QR code to download the report, you could, I'll stay for 2 seconds on this slide for you to capture it. You can download the first edition and the second edition as well. Thank you. All right. Our objective for this research has been very consistent with the first edition as well. And number 1 is to gain in-depth knowledge of the use of blockchain technology in Africa. We just don't want to assume that people are using blockchain. We want to make this conclusion from the place of evidence. We also don't want to buy into the media hype about the technology. We want to really have first-hand information and data that informs decision on the technology. And number 2 is that we were set out to bridge the gap between the academic blockchain knowledge and the industrial blockchain use and application. We've noticed these in the general entrepreneurial ecosystem, that there's always a mismatch of vision and also a disparity between the alignment of the academic research for a particular industry and the actual industrial research for that industry. So with this research, we are trying to bridge the gap between those 2 ecosystems. And number 3 is to produce an Africa blockchain report that is data rich. Like I said from the beginning, we just don't want to buy into the hype of media when it comes to the technology. We want to be able to make conclusions and make generalization and make strong statements from a place of data. And these are the 3 reasons and objectives that led us into this research project in the first place. For this edition, we covered 4 countries, Ghana, and I can see some of our stakeholders from Ghana on the call. Thank you so much for your participation. We had Zimbabwe, we had Rwanda, and we had Egypt. Ghana had the highest number of participants in terms of the startups who spoke to us and who responded to our survey. This also speaks to how buoyant that ecosystem is when it comes to innovation with the blockchain technology. And followed by Zimbabwe with 39.7%. We had quite a number of great innovators coming out of Zimbabwe as well, who spoke to us and responded to our survey. And then followed by Rwanda, we had 10.3% of the participants from Rwanda. And finally, we had Egypt with 8.6%. We were really impressed with the amount of information that came out of Egypt as well. We used a mixed method approach. We did in-depth interviews for stakeholders, And we are going to be hearing from some of those stakeholders shortly. And then we did survey for startups and innovators with the blockchain technology. And we are very, very proud of this edition because we added a little bit more ligaments as an improvement to the first edition. Then I'll run us through the results of the research. These are on gender distribution amongst other participants. This is consistent with what we discovered in the first edition. And this showed that there are more men in the blockchain technology ecosystem in Africa compared to women. You can see that 96.6% of people who participated in this research were men and 3.4 were women. And we were not set out to discover this or to design the research this way. It's just it just came as a natural occurrence that there were more men in this ecosystem than women. And this is, a great opportunity for inclusion advocacy for the technology. And I'm glad that Olayinka is here today, who has been championing bringing more women into the technology. And this is a great opportunity for as many of us who are interested in that ecosystem. For this edition, we included the educational levels part. This was not included in the first edition. This is a great improvement because from preliminary research, we noticed that I think there's a correlation between the level of education and the understanding of the blockchain technology. And from this research, we're able to confirm the hypothesis that the highest amount of people who are in this ecosystem are undergraduates, university undergraduates at 58.6%, followed by postgraduate students. And then we had people who had vocational training as their level of education at 3.4%, and higher school certificate at 6.9%. Yeah, so these confirm the hypothesis that the level of education oftentimes correlates with the understanding of the blockchain technology, because sometimes the ambiguous part of the technology can be understood when you have some preliminary information and basic understanding of how decentralization and computer networks actually work. And then we probed into the development stage of these blockchain startups, and we noticed that 51% of the innovators we engaged, they were actually at the ideation stage. What I'm seeing is vast opportunity for investment in blockchain technology, economic models in Africa. And we can also see that 39.7% of them are at the growth stage, which means from the ideation to the growth stage, there's vast level of opportunity there when you look at the chart. And then we noticed that 6.9% of these innovators are at the scaling stage. These are those who are trying to escape. My apologies. There's a noise going on in the building. So 6.9% of them are the scaling stage. And then just 1% are established, firmly established and profitable blockchain companies. This is a vast opportunity that we are looking at on the screen. And as many of us who are interested in entering this ecosystem fully, this is a marketable opportunity for us and opportunity for impact in this ecosystem. In terms of duration spent on developing their solution, 48.8% have been building their solutions between first year and the fifth year of development. Less than 51.7% of them have been building for less than a year, which means this the blockchain ecosystem and the innovation part of it in Africa is still at the gray stage. There's a gray area here, and there's a lot of experimentation going on, and there are new people entering the ecosystem daily. And then only 3.4% have been innovating with the technology between 5 to 10 years. This is also a great opportunity for investment, for education, for acceleration and incubation of blockchain solutions. In terms of blockchain misconception, because one of the things we wanted to dig deep into with this research is also to clear the misconception about the technology. And you can see that blockchain is the same as cryptocurrency, came up topmost at 50%. Many people still feel, in those countries that blockchain is the same as cryptocurrency. This is a sentiment that people really share in those countries. And then followed by blockchain is Bitcoin, and then followed by blockchain is the hotbed of illegal activity. So this is an opportunity, massive opportunity for blockchain advocacy, training, and education in these countries and generally in Africa to, dispel this, misconception about the technology. We believe that when this misconception is gone, the acceleration of the innovation will be very geometric and rapid. Therefore, blockchain solutions this year, in this edition, we noticed that cross-border payment is still the highest. So the financial use of the blockchain technology is still towering the highest, followed by, we noticed a lot of people are now building their Internet of Things system on the blockchain technology, which is really impressive to see that there's a use case that is close to that of cross-border payments. And then we also saw music royalty tracking, and also sharing of medical data, which is really interesting. And then this year we included NFT marketplace as one of the things we were measuring. And we are really glad to see that a lot of innovators with the blockchain technology are actually now building NFT marketplace with the blockchain technology. So these are the solutions that young people are building, and it's a great time to see this innovation outside of cryptocurrency use case. Key challenges, we noticed that in this edition, as consistent with what we discovered in the last edition as well, lack of funding is at 55.9%, which is the highest. And the second one is the market misconception of blockchain. And what I'm looking at on this screen is opportunity for advocacy to clear misconception, opportunity for some of us to contribute to policy. Many of us need to take the conversation and advocacy of the blockchain technology beyond our sitting rooms to meet the government, right? To be part of those who contribute to regulatory frameworks and conversations. And I'm seeing big investment opportunities for innovators, for those who want to invest in the innovators, including seed funding culture, and also insufficient access to blockchain skills training brings to us a vast opportunity for education and training on the continent. The support these innovators need, funding is towering the highest, and also we can see that market entry support. Many people are experimenting with the technology, but they do not actually know how to segment the market to know where exactly they want to go to and the people they need to solve for, because this is a new technology that many people are still, trying to come up to speed with on the continent. So these are some of the support needed: training, acceleration, mentorship, as many opportunities that you can plug to in this ecosystem. These are opportunities for you. And then these are recommendations. We can see that a lot of countries are now setting up committees. A lot of government are setting up committees and working groups to really understand the technology. And they will need the private sector, and we are the private sector. They will need us. They will need to consult us. They will need our information. They will need our data, and they will need our insight. This gives us a great opportunity for us not to stay aloof of engagement of government, especially now that they have working groups and committees. These are time to really move in and help them out with the information they need to regulate this ecosystem. And number two is that a lot of young people are experimenting with the blockchain technology, and the deal breaker for many of them is the lack of regulatory sandbox and favorable experimentation policies. So we are recommending that rather than most of our African countries staying on the wait and see approach for years, now it is time for them to move to experiment and see approach. They need to move away from wait and see. Now it's time to experiment and give that environment where young people can experiment and see what comes out of it. Without failure, we cannot move the technology forward. So this is one of our recommendation, which is the second one. The third one is, we saw earlier that there's a gender imbalance, and we cannot refuse or overlook the vast brilliance that women can bring into this ecosystem. And I'm really glad that this is showing in this research. And women must be encouraged. We must support them to also take part in this ecosystem. And number four is that there's a massive opportunity for investment, training, and advocacy for the technology on the continent. These are the recommendations that we have identified. And then these are the faces of the wonderful people and amazing stakeholders who have who engaged with us and that gave us some of the insights that were synthesized into the results that you can see. Thank you so much. Now, before we go to questions and answer, we have two of the stakeholders who participated in this research with us. And I'll start with Kudzai Mubaiwa. I've never met her personally and physically, but during the interview for this research, she was one of those amazing stakeholders that the passion with which she spoke during that interview made me know that we have hope on the continent for innovation and also a generation above, the young generation that is willing to mentor and, see the younger generation coming up better with the right information. And also, I love a passion for governance, for policy, for, I would say she's a table shaker, right? Let me just use that. And it's a pleasure to have Kudzai on the call. If you're ready, I'll give it to you to make a comment and review the report. And after Kudzai, we have Sean Musuka on the call, who is the founder of Africa Crypto Research. These are great stakeholders who we engage with. We actually thought we could engage everyone to review, but if we want to do that, we will not leave the air in 6 hours. So I'll start with Kudzai. If you are here, please unmute
Yes.
and make your review of the report.
Thank you very much, Adepoju. I'm very glad and honored to be here. Let me start by congratulating everyone who was a part of this process. My apologies that my video will not work. I'm on the go in a very dark place, but I'm hoping that you're able to at least see an image and you can clearly hear the voice. As has been said, my name is Kudzai Mubaiwa, and I am a co-founder of two initiatives that directly link with this exercise. The first one is MoneyZim, which I like to call Zimbabwe's leading personal finance podcast. So we do have a very large community of enthusiastic people who like to think about money. We run on a payoff line, which is helping you make sound financial decisions. We have meetups, we have conversations. And now because of the opportunity of the internet, you will find that there's quite a lot of growing interest with respect to the topic we're discussing at hand. But also I think more importantly, I'm also proud to be a part of an incubation space, which is called Eyes on Hub, which is again based in Harare in Zimbabwe, where we run under a theme enterprise development in the digital age. Both of these will matter for what I will say shortly, and I plan to keep it extremely short, just like I am. In real life, I'm only 153 centimeters, so I try and keep my addresses consistent with my height. But I want to say that it was quite an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this process. I must tell you that when I read this final report, it was very interesting that when I read my section, I was like, who's this person who thinks like me? Then I realized, oh, yes, they do speak quite passionately. I'm very passionate about Africa. One of the things that I spend a lot of personal time doing is volunteering in AfriLabs, which is at the moment Africa's largest network of innovation spaces. And we're sitting now at a membership of a little over 352 in 51 African countries and serving 1 million entrepreneurs. Now, let me launch from here and say, I really enjoyed the summary of the findings from the report. I must say that they were very well done, probably better than I could have summarized. But I find that already in my mind, I was beginning to think about the spaces and places where I could be a part of, one of which, of course, is by virtue of just being female. I see that there's great responsibility. One of my favorite characters says that with great power comes great responsibility. My 13-year-old son is always reminding me about that particular superhero. And I feel like we are very early in this game. Every indicator that's been shared so far tells us that we are very early in the game. When I was called in to speak, I was just tweeting how important you were saying that it's important now that we stop waiting and seeing and begin to act. And I do believe that the opportunity to act is there for many of us who are in this room. And for those of us who are in this room, I believe everyone, a single one of us represents behind them a community, a constituency, certain gatherings of people who can begin to make things happen on this African continent. I want to summarize my belief and what I see as the greatest opportunity around blockchain is very simple. as Africa is a continent, we have many difficult and important problems in different spaces, in agriculture, in education, in financial services. And I think very sad to see that in terms of the use cases, the election stroke governance ones were sort of like some of the not so popular, but it will be very interesting to see what can happen in the future as the world becomes faster. In fact, today is obviously the slowest would ever move. Everything else is going to move faster. So I want to say that I am extremely proud of the output that we have brought together, what we've been able to co-create. We are indeed what we create together. Mine is more than anything an encouragement to remind every single one of us who is in this room, and I can see 22 participants right now, that every single one of us with our communities matter. Those that are in the Christian faith have a deity called Jesus Christ, who gave them a simple commission. He said, "Go ye therefore and make fishers of men." And I want to say that as this particular publication is published, I believe that all of us in this room have seen spaces where we can begin to do the work. Let us not wait for anyone to anoint us or to call us. Let us take it upon ourselves to see the spaces and the places that excite us from the outputs. Where we feel things are lacking, let's begin to get in. Personally, my commitment is within the incubation spaces, within women, and particularly so women of color, that I make sure that I become an ambassador of this publication and of course opportunities in blockchain, that we are able to solve our continent's difficult and important problems. And so in conclusion, I will say, congratulations to all of us and to every stakeholder who is in here. Let us continue doing the work. Let us go ye therefore and ensure that we take advantage and leverage the opportunity of the internet, the opportunity of blockchain to solve Africa's most difficult and important problems. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Kudzai. That's a very short and succinct contribution. Thank you for showing up. I know you have a lot of things on your plate. Thank you for showing up. Now I would go to Sean Musuka, founder of Africa Crypto Research. He's one of those people that think statistically like me. So I hope he's able to dissect the research in more technical terms. Sean, your audio, we can't hear you. Yes.
Okay, how about now?
Sure, we can hear you now.
All right. Okay, great. First, I just wanted to apologize first because there's a little bit of construction going on next door, and so they're doing some weird stuff with concrete and pumping it. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but hopefully I'm coming through okay. Rwanda is a very dense country, you know, so it can be very noisy in certain places, but I love it nonetheless. So first of all, congratulations on getting the report out. I really enjoyed reading it. I was fortunate enough to get an early preview. And I would say the part I enjoyed the most was getting to read the survey from the projects that were interviewed. And what was fascinating was because, of course, I was one of them. A lot of the things they said were not surprising, but what I really appreciated was that you guys have gone through now and we can now cite to it. We can say, okay, ABI has gone through and here's a data point, here's the survey of these builders and this is what they say. Whereas like, you know, if I was just saying it, they're like, okay, this is what Sean Musuka thinks. So now it takes an extra amount of weight, and I really appreciated that. Because now we can really back that up. And so please continue doing that. The next part is, okay, so what surprised me the most in the survey of challenges was I knew that funding was a challenge, but I would not have thought that regulatory, in the survey of challenges that you did, I would not have thought that regulatory would rank third. Because if you go and ask people in the American ecosystem right now, what is the most challenging thing that you guys are facing? A lot of them are going to say, oh, regulatory, absolutely, right? And so I found it fascinating that within the African ecosystem, regulatory is like the number 3 concern. So that it supports once again that like the African ecosystem is distinct, and we need to recognize that when we talk about blockchain globally, that that you're going to have different priorities in this ecosystem. And then the next thing I wanted to say was, David, I really appreciated you using the word opportunity so many times, because that really is the same thing that I'm seeing, which is that even though there are all these challenges and there's in terms of people not understanding the technology, in terms of people not having access to funding, in terms of regulators still dragging their feet in a lot of situations and not providing clarity, right? It's difficult not to see the opportunity. And it's also quite strange because when you look at the price of these assets within, at least within the crypto ecosystem, which whether we like it or not, influences how people feel about this space, right? This is not a great time. But at the same time, I have never seen this much energy and this many people being excited about what's coming. So people are just, and not only that, so many people coming in to work on the technology. So I'm really excited about what's coming. And as you know, I work with African crypto research. So a lot of my focus on data and so forth happens on the crypto side. And one of the exercises I've been doing recently is looking at the crypto projects that have raised money to say, okay, what is the data on the people who have raised money? Like, what have they actually done? Or, where are they? Who are these people? Can we quantify how much money it is? And I was really surprised to see how many projects have raised money, and we haven't even heard from them yet. So I imagine, and a lot of them, right, even though they will be issuing tokens and doing crypto-y stuff, they are leveraging blockchain technology in the background, doing NFTs and all kinds of other applications that are built on blockchains. And so I think that we're on the precipice. You're right when you say that the time is now. I think that the massive expansion in this space in Africa has already begun and is only going to accelerate. And really, the message I wanted to say is that I hope that you guys are ready for that, because I know that some of you are OGs who've been in the space for a long time, and it feels like the gear is about to shift and the pace is about to accelerate greatly. So I would just finish by saying I'm really excited, and I think we're going to be doing great things. Oh, and Kudzai, I had a note about governance. First of all, I really enjoyed what you had to say. I can tell why you do podcasts. Like I was ready to listen to you for like 2 hours. I was ready, honestly. But governance, there's some interesting stuff. I didn't really get to dig into it, but there have been some interesting things that happened in the Kenyan election. And I saw some commentary coming out saying that, oh, this has implications for blockchain voting. So if you haven't caught that news, something to look into. But yeah, and that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Sean. That's an amazing contribution, and we appreciate all the information, the support, and the the insights you gave during the process of the research as well. Thank you so much. Back to you, Kume.
Thank you so much, David. I actually enjoyed the comments given, and especially as Sean said, Kudazi, hopefully I'm pronouncing it well. I was really impressed as well. And I was like, can she continue? Please continue, right? So thank you. So looking back at the question, so the question is still open for anyone to give, and then hopefully we can facilitate the answers. But so far we've got 2 questions. Maybe I'll start from the last. The last question is saying that most of the adoption is, in summary, is driven by incentive, rewards, and money. And they're saying, is there alternative way of driving the adoption, for example, by having practical measures that can be employed to really help individuals in Africa to really see the need of tech? So I guess the behavioral science aspect probably, Kudazi, I'll give it to you maybe to see if you can comment on this question.
Sure, I'm happy to give it a first crack. I was just going to start with something a bit tongue in cheek. The Queen was buried on Monday, and there were amazing queues there. I say so because I know that most of us who are in this room are Africans, and we don't really like queuing. I'm hoping that it's incentive enough for people, and I think this is one of the things I highlighted in the research itself. That one of the use cases I see when it comes to things like blockchain is, in my country, in Zimbabwe, if someone wants land, right, it's done through council. So there is a local council that you go and you register with, you pay a small amount, a nominal amount, everybody should be able to afford it, and they place you in a queue. And all things being equal, as and when they develop land, which people like to call stands, they should be able to call you in according to how you queued and say, it's your turn now. And then they parcel out something to you. But I've been in a queue for close to, and I'm 40 now, for close to 15 years. And not once has anybody sent me an SMS or a call to say you finally have moved up, which is very interesting. And I want to say, yes, I believe that incentives matter. I don't always think that it's money. And coming from someone who has a money podcast, I do love money. I mean, it goes without saying. However, I feel like comfort is something that people want. And the first thing, I have to be very honest, I'm speaking as someone whose country has an election next year here. And I think it's a really brilliant question about incentives and human behavior. If things can solve problems for us, I think what we need to do is to show people how much blockchain has the technology has opportunity to solve problems. For example, the first thing I spoke about is if all of this was done on a blockchain immutable ledger, no one jumps the queue. No one jumps the queue. No one likes people who jump the queues at a funeral, at a grocery store, at church, even to get laid hands. No one likes anybody who jumps queues. So I think perhaps the work that we have to do is to demonstrate that the incentives or the benefit is not just money that comes into your pocket, but it's time saved, it's comfort, it's ease, it's placing you where you should be. If you're early in the queue, you should have a fair chance at accessing whatever it is that you are queuing for. So for me, that's something I feel like we should push. But again, I think we're not ignorant of the many hoops we have to go through and jump through, because like has already been rightly said in the highlights of the report, just understanding what blockchain is still quite an issue. People are more used to aware of scams because bad news travels faster. But I always feel like that's also a very lovely entry point to begin the conversation on on why this actually can work and how it all works. And so I'll say that's my first response, to highlight the fact that there are use cases for us beyond just crypto and putting money into our pockets. I'm proud because of the Zimbabwean ecosystem we do reference, and I think Prosper is one of the guys who is quoted in this report, who led a number of us to come up with, at least for Zimbabwe, a number of use cases. I think key now is then to distribute this and put it to the places where it matters. In communities that matter. I personally am very comfortable with numbers. I believe in them. And I think even things that start as a trickle at some point will build up to become a stream, and at some point a river. I would say that's my initial response. As long as we can demonstrate to people that blockchain has opportunity to solve our difficult and important problems, then we will have a winner there.
Thank you so much, Kudazi. I'll pass it to Sean again if you have further comments before we pass it to the second question.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with Kuzai in the sense that we just need to prove utility. And then when it comes to the question of, okay, what's utility? Then it depends where you see it. For me, I'll give the same answer that I gave at the last ABI event, which is that I'm very excited about alternative credit scoring. And the most recent example of that right now is this Kenyan project. I don't know if some of you had heard about this, called Pezesha, where they basically have an API that plugs into all of these marketplaces, and then people can borrow through Pezesha to buy whatever they want in those marketplaces. And it looks like they're partnering with the Cardano blockchain such that users on that blockchain will be able to deploy their money to then lower the lending rates that the Pezesha users face. So I think that things like that are how we're going to prove this technology has utility, right? And just to give a bit of quick background on why that's useful is because the cost of borrowing in Africa, as everyone knows, is really high. And the reason it's really high is because there isn't enough money being put in to lend out to people. So we just need to open the pipelines to bring in that money, and the technology, because we can sort of crowdfund that money. It has a potential to really disrupt the lending area. So I think that once people start understanding that, that's probably when we start converting people, because it's very practical. And once again, going to the thing I said, it's Africa-centric, because that's not an issue that is faced in other parts of the world, but it really is an issue that we face here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean. So I'll go back to the first question from Uganda. It's basically asking about a suggestion made about governments and if the report actually assessed the risks and the upsides of the approach suggested. That's the first question. And the second question is regarding sandboxing. And again, they're saying, is there any alternative approach for government to adopt and basically assess risk, I guess, in terms of prioritizing private sector interest versus national interest. So sandboxing, and then also and question around how the report made the risk and the upside approach. So David, maybe the first one is for you, and then in terms of sandboxing, I guess Sean, you can continue, and then we can continue from there.
Yeah, thank you. Comment. Let me read the question again. Bias person for African Education was going to incentives.
It's the question from Uganda, the first one, which
yeah.
is
Your
report.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. And one of the issues we've faced on the continent is basically trying to convince the government on the potentials of this technology. We're not even telling them everything that the technology can do. We're just telling them, try and experiment with it, create an environment for people to even experiment, right? Rather than ban what you don't understand, try and give it a chance and just see, right? So we may not be able to predict even how the governments of these countries will actually take these recommendations, but we know that from research and from ecosystem collaboration, we know and we've seen that the government usually listen to people they trust and the people they relate with. And the blockchain ecosystem is growing bigger daily on the continent. And we know that without engaging those people that the government trusts, we may not be able to, or the people that the government find easy to relate with, we may not be able to, make any influence on the government. And that is why we are taking a multi-stakeholder approach to this advocacy for the government to give an uptake to the recommendations we are giving. Number one is through the academia. It's been seen and discovered and proven and tested that the government usually listen to the academia. They want to listen to the professors because they believe they are in their own evaluation, those are the people that are really wise and they have the right information and they think they are statistically sound, which is fine. So how do we as a private sector in the blockchain ecosystem collaborate with the people the government trusts for us to enter government and diffuse and granularize some of this data that we have and the recommendations for us to give it to them. I think that's our own approach. When it comes to how do we help them to, look at the risk and things that comes with these recommendations, that may not be our work because our work is definitely to make them see the potentials of the technology and prove to them, with evidence and empirical evidence that the technology is beyond all the early narratives that came with the technology on the continent, which is definitely Ponzi schemes and money scams, which is actually the reason why most of the governments are permanently taking the wait and see approach. But we need evidence, and that's why we are encouraging more innovators to give us things that are, that works, that we can connect, that we can use as an evidence when we are connecting with those that the government trusts. So we're looking at a three-pronged journey from the private sector to the innovators who have the evidence, and then we can connect with the government eventually. And I think that's my response to that. We may not be able to conclusively say what will happen with our recommendation, but we know that we want to use channels that the government really believe in and the channels that they trust to really sit down with them eventually. Thank you, Kume. Back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, on the sandboxing, if there is any, I guess, agile approach, because Kenya, the financial, the capital market have one of the, I think, the most adopted sandbox. But then I think there is also complaint around that it takes, up to 1 or 2 years for the private sector to go through that sandbox, and then it's seen as successful, but then I think there is also some complaints. So it would be interesting to hear if there is agile and easier approaches on beyond sandboxing or alternative to sandboxing.
I can take that. Sandbox, sometimes it's good to have sandboxes, right? It's good to have that, create that environment where innovators can plug their innovation for experimentation. But like I would always say, I think the blockchain technology is a rebellious technology, right? Despite the absence of sandboxes all across Africa, people are innovating with the technology every day. Even in countries where the government said people should not hold crypto, people are still, holding crypto and, using crypto every day. So the end point that I see with this journey is that the government is the one that will eventually have to catch up with the private sector, because the truth is that people will always find ways to innovate. And what we call agile in the blockchain ecosystem is definitely innovating without waiting for regulations and sandboxes. And you can see that the government is, when you read, if you read CoinDesk, you'll see that all the news that have been coming out of CoinDesk in the last 1 month is about regulations, is about governments now, putting their faith into what is happening, is about the Senate of countries inviting crypto companies funders to come and speak. Recently, the founder of Crypto Council for Innovation went to testify in the US Senate, right? So you can see that the government is catching up with the flow of the private sector. That is what is agile in this ecosystem. We are not going to wait until, even in countries where there has never been any pronouncement or any, media or any official statement from the government, young people are innovating with the technology. Some of them, native of those countries, went to register their companies in another place, but they are innovating for the African country. And we are going to see many of that in the coming days. So our agile is innovating without waiting for sandboxes. Sandboxes are good. We are expecting it from many African countries. But the truth is that people cannot wait for sandboxes from people who don't understand the technology. We are the one that will eventually teach them how the technology works by the work we are doing. And they are the ones that will come to us eventually. So reverse will be the case. That's what I believe.
Thank you, David. I guess I'll just jump into the next question because we have limited time. So before I go into the education and awareness question, there's a question regarding to regulation again. It's saying that the first recommendation is to blockchain private sector to engage the government and policymakers, but then in the absence of comprehensive regulatory and legal framework, what interim operative guidelines and measures are in place to safeguard the blockchain ecosystem? So I guess in the absence of regulation, for example, even if you look at Ethiopia, it's blocked, what are other things that you can do to keep the motion going for blockchain to safeguard it with the listed countries, I guess? So I guess this is also back to you, David.
Yeah, so when we do classification and mapping of countries in Africa in terms of government position on blockchain, there are some countries that have made a statement on wait and see. They've warned the people not to use the crypto parts of the technology, but they are not against blockchain technology, right? There's another region that says anything blockchain, decentralization, crypto is banned. If you are caught, you are going to be punished. And there's another region that has not said anything, right? So this, I want to think about that question with these three types of money. So for countries that have said, okay, for crypto, we don't want you to do anything with crypto, but we are not against the blockchain technology. That's an opportunity for the blockchain ecosystems in those countries to explore continuously opportunities for other use cases of the blockchain technology. Crypto is what we get on the nerves of the government, which means the innovators in the ecosystem can make use of the blockchain technology and build other use cases. For the region that have outrightly banned crypto and any use case of blockchain technology, we may not have a lot of advice for them. But for the region where the government have not said anything, which means where there is no law, anything is permitted. And that is how laws are being made. That is how policies evolve sometimes. And you can see that in countries that have not said anything about the technology of crypto, people are innovating with it. People are building new things, and they are building sustainable structures. So I would advise that in those, out of the 3 maps that I've just explained to us, for countries where the government have nothing against the blockchain technology, people can continue to innovate with it. And they don't want crypto, fine. People can, find a way not to step on the government toes with crypto. And you can see that even in Nigeria, in February 2021, when the government of Nigeria banned crypto, the uptake of crypto went up by 45% in 6 months, peer-to-peer exchange. That tells you that banning it is even putting more fuel into it. And I believe that innovators don't wait for government. Government waits for innovators.
Thank you so much. I guess we'll try to give one question and then we continue. So there's a question around education. Are there plans for outreach activities to educate the population about benefits of blockchain technology and what's the application offers, with the context on how it best suits their needs? So I guess there is the question around what are the use cases available, and then also the benefits of blockchain technology, maybe in a way people could understand. And then I guess fostering innovation. So what is the plan? That's the question. So I guess maybe David, or maybe I'll pass it to the private sector. So maybe Suzanne, you want to go ahead? Sean, I mean, sorry, Suzanne. Sean.
Sorry, I was like, who is Suzanne? Okay, no problem. Yeah, I'm glad this is a great question. And it's actually one of the areas that I've been tracking. The education efforts in Africa right now are massive. And I would actually argue that that is probably the foundational activity that is taking place right now. So this report that's just come out is education, and even the big players, right? So, and right, who's backing this report? This report has been backed by Algorand, right? Similarly, other ecosystem players like Polygon. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now, but there are a lot of education efforts going on, and it's going to, right? It's blockchain is a weird one because it's very complicated and the use cases are not clear yet to most of the public. So it's just going to take time. So I wouldn't worry about education. I think it's underway, and I've actually been impressed with how much investment there has been in education over the past 6 months. I just wanted to quickly add a point on regulation. So funnily enough, I was speaking to Prosper, who Kudzai mentioned before. He's like, one of the Zimbabwean blockchain gurus, and he was because I'm previously a lawyer, and he's a lawyer as well, and he was just telling me about what's happening in terms of regulation at the global level, and he was talking about how so you have this organization called the Financial Action Task Force that sits at the top, and they sort of set the rules for how countries should proceed with rules around money laundering. And what they do is they set the rules and then they send them down, and every country has to follow those rules, otherwise they get designated a risky country. So no country wants to fall into this category because it hurts their money in all these different ways. And basically what the Financial Action Task Force has decided is that crypto needs to come into a formal framework because they don't want it outside, they want it inside, so that they can kind of get their hands on it. They believe that it is more of a risk outside of the financial system than inside. So now they've sent the rules down to the countries, and different countries are taking their time, because obviously different countries have different government systems. It takes them time to implement things, but basically they're all moving in the same direction. So what Prosper was telling me, and what I kind of tend to believe, is that eventually they're all going to fall in line, which is why, to give a final example, you see Ethiopia most recently, just 2 months ago. So 3 or 4 months ago, Ethiopia gave the typical warning that David referenced, which is like, if you touch anything to do with blockchain, crypto, you're going to jail. Please report anyone who's doing this. And then 2 months later, they came out with a notice. They're saying, okay, we're going to register every company that's working in this space. And it's because the word is coming down. So I'm not really worried about the regulatory side. I think it's going to take time, but it is moving in the right direction.
I guess, Sean, to your comment as well, it's basically also related to because of the unknown fear. Because if you don't know anything, automatically you just block until you figure it out. And the approach probably would be is to educate, to keep on pushing and giving awareness and educate all the regulatory bodies until they get comfortable with it, and ease with all the regulations. So, but I think it all got to do with fear. So hopefully that would ease when we do more awareness and then awareness is built. So then the next question, let me look at it, the next question, or maybe Kudazai, would you like to say something about education and awareness aspect as well? And, touching about regulation, touching about also even the mass youth that we have and use cases as well.
Well, I would say that colleagues have already said, I think, a lot of what I would have said, but perhaps just to also add to the conversation by saying that I very gladly take on the role of, sometimes in some spaces described as a financial educator. And I must say that for anything to be used, for people to know what use cases are, we can never underestimate the role of education. And by this, I'm talking about getting people to know about things and to know how they work and how they understand, and to understand how things work. But I'm also extremely positive, perhaps too much so, with respect to the opportunity of the internet. And I'll say something that gives me a lot of hope all of the time as a parent, is how I see how my children, I have 2, behave compared to how I did at the stages that I was at, that when I was their age, really. There's absolutely much more opportunity now with respect to the internet. I feel like children are much more curious. We have a big numbers across all of African countries of young digital natives. And so I think that work should be so much easier. I think as Africa Blockchain Institute, we really should be on TikTok. That's my parting shot. Let's spread the word. It can be done. Because after everything has been said and done, people will only work with things that they understand. So education is extremely powerful. Let's do it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I agree. And there is a comment that was given saying the Ethiopian Ministry of Education is supposed to be working with Cardano for the ID. Actually, that's true. So there is like a conflict of, I guess, agendas between some department interests of the government interest and versus the other. So I guess when it has to do with currency and money, and I guess majority of African countries are a bit uneasy, but then the education was not seen as a risk. So, but then I think education should actually influence regulation, and that's its role. So maybe something that we can pass to the Ethiopian government at some point as part of our advocacy. Let me see if there is more question, and then maybe we can bring it to closure. There is a question that was said in this country that you were in. How was the paradox of crypto being security or asset class as regards regulation handled? I guess this is David, to you.
Good question. And I think in the interest of time, I would advise the person that has that question to really dig deep into the report. As much as possible, we tried to cover a lot of use cases outside of crypto, right? Because that's what we really wanted to see, the innovation. But there are crypto information there for each of those countries in the report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Let me see the next agenda. I guess there's no more questions. So we're gonna bring the question and answer to closure and pass it to announcement on the future country and coverage and edition. Back to you, David, again.
Yes, quickly. So we've started the third edition project. We're covering Mauritius, Morocco, Ethiopia, and Senegal. Those are the 4 countries we're covering. And then we hope to round up the third edition by December this year. It's a lot of work. We're, data collectors on the field. We're conducting interviews, chasing people that can give us insight. But those 4 countries, we hope to present them to you at the end of this year. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. I'm glad that you're coming to Ethiopia to gather more.
Yes, we're
more and I think it'll be much more beneficial. I guess as we come to closure, so I'll pass it to Mr. Oliyanka Orinarani, Advisory Board Member of African Blockchain Institute, to give us a closing remark and vote of thanks. Over to you, Mr. Oliyanka.
Kume, thank you very much. I'm actually a miss. It's all good. No problem.
The bias is in all of us. So
women are in blockchain too. So we're here. No, but I thank you very much. And I thank all of you for joining us. I want to give a big shout out to the African Blockchain Institute for their work and their effort in putting this wonderful report together. Thank you for Algorand for signing on board and helping us provide this. My name is Oliyanka Denner, and I am the founder of Black Women Blockchain Council. I'm also a proud member, board member of the Africa Blockchain Institute. When Kayode reached out and basically wanted me to do this closing, I wanted to find a way to summarize the report. And one of the things that kept running through is the fact that blockchain in Africa consistently is a grassroots movement. And I'm very proud that that is a consistent theme when it comes to blockchain and it comes to how it's moving through Africa. Being that this is a second report, it's detrimental for us to continue on and get more insight. David mentioned earlier that this report is data rich, and it surely is. It has strong sentiments and statements that basically solidifies blockchain, Africa's involvement in blockchain and how blockchain is being used in Africa. Going through these different countries and finding that there are innovators in this country is very important. Focusing on the fact that we still need to bridge that gap between academics and individuals, as well as the government, is very important. It's important for us to consistently have reports that basically focus on Africa and how we're presenting ourselves in this ecosystem. Blockchain was reintroduced into the world back in 2008 when an unknown individual decided that they were going to use it to solve an old age issue when it comes to digital currency. It's no wonder that we consistently see it as #1 solution for the payment issues that we encounter as part of the African diaspora. But we know that there's several different innovations that will definitely be created off of this technology. And I'm glad that there are people within our continent that's basically working towards bringing forth those innovations. I want to thank once again ABI. I want to thank our shareholders for their comments and their participation in this. Sean Kaduze, thank you very much for your contribution. David and Kayode, thank you guys for the things that you're doing. Kuma, thank you very much for moderating this. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Kayode, if you don't have anything to say, I'm going to bring this to closure and end the session.
No, thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and we wish us all a good evening.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.